Hello and welcome to a new camera angle of Medicare-for-All Mondays. If you don't like this new camera angle, don't worry, it's temporary. And if you do like it, I'm sorry, it's temporary. This is the show where we push for the United States adopting a universal healthcare system, just like every other country in the world, where healthcare is free at the point of service. I'm sorry to say, though, that this will probably be the last episode of Medicare-for-All Mondays because, well, the conservatives, they've stumped us. They've finally done it. They've finally come up with an ironclad piece of argumentation that explains why free healthcare might work in the Nordic countries like Norway, Sweden, Denmark, etc., but it could never work here because, well, I'll let them explain.
Responding to those claims of the utopianism of the Nordic countries.
Okay, so the first thing that's important to notice about the Nordic countries is that the Nordic countries are, by and large, extraordinarily ethnically homogenous. So they're not comparable and culturally homogenous as well. So Vermont looks a lot like Norway. Right, Bernie Sanders' philosophy works in Vermont and it works in Norway, but it only works for a temporary period of time because Vermont doesn't have its own defense budget, and really neither does Norway. First of all, I mean, whenever we get into these sorts of discussions, you have to start looking at apples-to-apples comparisons in terms of the demographics of the United States, our age, the ethnic composition of the United States, because different ethnicities actually have different health problems disproportionately.
Oh, so Medicare for All won't work because America has too many brown people. Dang it! Well, you stumped us there. I admit defeat. Come on, Bernie, pack your things. We're leaving. Okay, so basically, it would be harder for a more diverse country to provide universal health care because different races are prone to different diseases? I mean, it's technically true, but would that really create an undue burden for the government? I mean, yeah, those whose ancestry traces back to Africa and the Mediterranean are more susceptible to sickle cell disease, and white people are more susceptible to cystic fibrosis, but like, so what? How does that create a burden, though? It's not like sickle cell disease and cystic fibrosis are the #1 causes of death for each race in the United States. I mean, like, yeah, different races might be susceptible to different diseases, but people of the same race can be susceptible to different diseases for genetics. And it's not like everyone of the same race is exactly the same and has the same health needs. A developed country like the United States is perfectly capable of handling different people's different health needs. Again, we already have existing Medicare, which both white and black people have. It hasn't created an undue burden on that system. This argument is usually given in response to when progressives tout the success of Scandinavian countries that all have strong social welfare programs. But these aren't the only countries with publicly financed healthcare. Why does healthcare work in Canada, a very diverse country that has a non-white population of about 30%? Or what about, Australia and Germany, also countries that are very diverse and have large non-white populations? Oh, but it's not as large as the US's non-white population. Okay, so is there an upper limit? I mean, how many black people would have to move to Norway for their healthcare system to suddenly stop functioning? 1 million? 2 million? 3 million? What's the upper limit? This idea that government-financed healthcare can't work if a country has too many non-white people or is too ethnically diverse is just racist. But you know what? I'll give Ben and those like him on this issue the benefit of the doubt. A lot of people who make this argument aren't talking about how different racial or ethnic groups have inherently different healthcare needs, even though he literally just said that. Oftentimes, they simply make the point that America has less, quote, social capital than many other countries in the world.
Social capital matters. Culture matters.
Social capital is a concept in social science that is the set of shared interests and values that a community has that allows for different people to work together. Basically, the argument is that because the US is so divided on racial, ethnic, and cultural lines, a government-run or even government-financed healthcare system wouldn't work because people would be less likely to care about each other and work to help others.
In my vision of a perfect healthcare world, essentially because you know your neighbors and you know your community, you don't want your neighbors to die, your community helps subsidize your healthcare. But I have very serious doubts about the national community subsidizing healthcare at a large scale because I don't know that person in New York. I don't know what their habits are. I don't know what incentives they have to engage in the healthcare structure.
Now, look, it is true that the reason we don't have universal healthcare now is because, well, we are a very individualistic nation that doesn't really prioritize helping each other out. Many countries that have universal healthcare created their systems at a time where they were united in a common cause to help one another. Great Britain adopted a nationalized healthcare system after World War II, when their country had been devastatingly bombed and beaten up by the Axis powers. all of the people of Britain came together to help one another and vote for a system of quality universal health care. Can America do this? Yes. And we don't even have to be bombed. A majority of Americans now do support Medicare for All. Despite our differences, we do fundamentally believe as a nation in helping one another. Our alleged low social capital and our, quote, unwillingness to help our neighbors may create barriers in the implementation of a Medicare for All system, but not the operation of it, as proven by all the other diverse developed countries out there that have had universal health care for decades. We are a caring nation, and we can come together on this. We've done it before, during World War II, and we can do it again.